All right, next, things that are rivalrous but not excludable. So every time I consume it, there's less left over for somebody else, and yet there is no way to stop me or there's no way to force me to pay for it just to consume it. Okay? So the goods, with their use, diminishes the total amount available for everybody else. However, there's no way to stop somebody from using it. They can use it if they want. You cannot stop them. You can't stop them from watching the fireworks show, except this is a fireworks show where every time I look at it, there's less fireworks left over for you. These are called commons goods. We're over here in this corner here. The word commons there is in reference to the old English farming system, where there were commons fields to farm on, and you sort of rush to take up as much land as you possibly could, as soon as you could, because otherwise somebody else would use it instead. So these are goods which run out, but everybody can get to. So you can imagine what the incentive is here for somebody in one of these markets who's consuming, right? If you're thinking, well, it's going to run out, and you can't stop anybody from making it run out really quickly, so I better run it even faster than everybody else, so I can use it before they do, right? So the incentive is that people have to rush in and use them as quickly as possible in order to get their stuff, right? Now this makes the problem even worse because A means that because it's a rivalrous good that runs out, it will run out more quickly, and B, even if it doesn't run out, you're going to consume more than you probably even want to, right? If you are running in to try to use this quickly, you're not going to think, how much of this do I actually want? Where does my marginal benefit equal marginal cost? Rather, you're going to think, this might not be here tomorrow. I better consume as much of it as possible today. I will go beyond the point where marginal benefit equals marginal cost in anticipation of it not being here tomorrow. So we'll get inefficiently high consumption as opposed to inefficiently low consumption like we have with artificially scarce goods. So it's sort of like we have a stable supply and demand model, but the consumers got to tell the suppliers what to do. Like, hey, give me this stuff really, really cheap, and you must give it to me. And then, of course, you end up overusing the resources, and then eventually the whole thing falls apart. One place where this applies a lot is in, environmental natural resources generally. If there's not some sort of thing that prevents people from just going and harvesting the resources, then it would be a commons good, right? Think about all the lumber out there. There was nothing restricting you from just chopping down all the trees, and you think, wow, maybe I should go chop down the trees before everybody else does, right? And then you have all the trees, and they'd all be gone. Other examples, Halloween's coming up. If you leave an unguarded Halloween candy dish on your front step, that is a rivalrous good. Every time somebody takes a piece of candy, there's one less left over for somebody else. But also, if nobody's watching, and then some kid walks along, realizes the situation, dumps all the candy in their bag, and all the candy's gone, right? Fish stocks in the ocean, common farmland, public forestry, lots of natural resource type things fall into this category. Here's sort of one way this plays out. You might have heard the term tragedy of the commons before. That is referring to commons goods. That's where that phrase comes from. So think about what's going to happen. Imagine you have a group of 5 farmers and some common ground for grazing their cows. Let's say the land can sustainably support 20 cows. However, if you graze more than 20 cows on it, the next year it's going to be a little bit less fertile. It'll slowly decline until it's dead. Right? So what is everybody going to think? Well, first of all, this is a rival good. If I bring in more cows than the land can support, then there's going to be less grazing land left over for people next year. However, it's common land, so it is non-excludable. Nobody can stop me from grazing my cows here. This is the common land. So every farmer is going to think, well, there's 5 of us. If we each brought 4 cows, it would be sustainable forever. But what if Hutchins down the road brings in another cow this year? Well, then there would be less left over than everybody next year, and we'll be in real trouble. Maybe I better bring in an extra cow this year so that when next year there's not enough left over, I'll still be okay. So I'm going to bring just in 1 extra cow. And then everybody else also thinks, hey, I'm also going to bring in 1 extra cow. And then suddenly there's 30 cows trying to graze this land, and it dies very quickly. That's exactly what I just said. Okay. So these individual incentives lead us to overconsume these goods until they are destroyed and gone. Like I said, a lot of environmental problems sort of fall into this category. So how do you stop it, right? So we have sort of a compromise fix for artificially scarce or club goods. Can we do the same with these commons goods? Well, in this case, you sort of have to step in with, well, regulation is one path. There's another we'll talk about in a second. So regulation is one path. You come in and say, hey, the problem here is that it's non-excludable, but I can't stop you from using it unless you pay for it. What if we just made it excludable with like a law or something like that, so that you do have to pay for Well, in that case, it then would stop becoming a commons good and instead become a private good, and then the market would work a little bit better for that, right? So that could be in a bunch of different forms. It could be, hey, you got to buy a license to log or fish here or whatever. It could be less formal like that in a lot of sort of more traditional logging or fishing or whatever communities. You know, if you're the person who comes back who has fished more than they are supposed to be fishing this year, then you know they're going to get you in trouble, get angry at you, and maybe kick you out of the village or whatever, right? So there can be common local norms about what you are allowed to harvest, which is one way that this problem could be solved. You can also fix this with private ownership, which is a very unequal but efficient way of solving the problem, right? What's going on here? Well, you know, everybody has access to this land, and nobody is sure how much of it everyone else is going to leave there. But what if one person just owned the land? If one person owned the land, then it would be in their interest to, you know, use it as efficiently as possible because they're going to reap the rewards of all that efficiency. And so it's no longer going to be in their interest to deplete it as quickly as possible. That said, this does mean that then that one person that gets all the benefits of this resource as opposed to it being shared equally, which is the idea of the commons in the first place. These are both tricky fixes, right? For this one, you got to figure out what is the right quantity to allow people to do it. And then you got to spend a bunch of money on enforcement. This one's also tricky because it's highly unequal. So, you know, there are fixes, but they can be done.